And yeah, it's great if everybody could let us know where they're coming in from today in the chat. I'm coming from you from sunny London, and it's really special to meet you all. And thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. Um, I'm just going to go through the overview of the Economics Mutuality and Mutual Value Labs. My colleagues, Alistair and Carla, will go through more detail about the program itself. And then we've got some really great guests to discuss more informally the, the their experiences of both being participants and facilitators in previous cohorts, Martin and Jane, and I thank all of them for taking the time to be with us today. Um, so, without further ado, thank you, Sarah, and we will introduce everybody specifically later in the presentation. So, our organisation, the Economics Mutuality Alliance and Mutual Value Labs, are a non-profit alliance that helps companies put human and environmental flourishing at the centre of value creation. It's really around changing the way that people both see and do business, and and looking to change the orientation of capitalism so that we can really tackle the major challenges of the age in a profitable but moral and useful way, and can really use business's position within society as our kind of chosen lever of innovation in an effective and useful way. And the Economics Mutuality, so Mutual Value Labs, really set up for businesses, but this is only a part of what we do. Our foundation really works with public sector and charitable arms and academia. Our investment arm helps investors identify opportunities for mutual value creation that we will discuss later. And then our Human Flourishing Foundation looks at place-based, community-based opportunities for human flourishing using the model identified through the economics of mutuality. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. And so where did we come from? The Economics of Mutuality Alliance was previously the internal economic think tank at the Mars Foundation. And for over 10 years ago, the genus of where we came from was the Mars family asking the very simple question, two simple questions. What is the correct level of profit that our very successful, huge, multi-billion dollar business should be making? And B, within our business model, what is the optimal lever for us to have positive societal change? These questions led to a multi-6-year academic incubation at the Oxford Said Business School, that really looked to answer those two very specific questions. And I think really led this business innovation program looked to bridge the gap between super ambitious, both morally, financially, and business ambition between business leaders and rigorous academic research, and really bridge that gap. In 2020, the Economics of Mutuality was spun out because the team at Mars really saw the findings and the ethos and the principles from the business innovation program to be a positive good, and Mars itself would have more benefit from the world using the principles of the economics of mutuality than keeping them for themselves. And so since 2020, we have been a foundation-owned, not-for-profit based in Geneva, looking to spread the value of mutuality as our guiding principle to as many ambitious businesses internationally as possible. And one of the ways in which we do this is through our Leading with Purpose course that we are on our 10th cohort for now. But sorry, next slide, please. What is mutuality, and how does mutual value contribute to your business? And this is obviously the reason why so many of you are looking to this course. And I love this quote from Loïc Mottot, who is the leader of a multi-billion dollar business, the biggest pet care company in the world, who has seen mutual value creation as their secret sauce. It is the way that they have tallied 20 years of double-digit revenue growth. And the reason why so many business leaders look to mutuality to base to future-proof their business. And I think that we've listed a number of the reasons why you would base the business around mutual value creation. But I think that one of the reasons why many people will be on this call is moral as well. I don't think that anybody here will want to look back on their business career in their 80s and tell their grandkids about the extra shareholder value that they created. They really want to kind of find those win-win situations that allow them to make business leaders to have a super positive impact throughout their ecosystem, in the communities in which they are situated, in a way that drives profitable, impressive business results, both in terms of strategy, organization, reputation, financial, and social environmental consequences. So that is what is, my opinion, is the kind of the basis of mutual value creation from a business strategy perspective. How we get there, I'm very happy to pass on to Alistair and Carla, who are our program leads for our course. And finally, just lovely to meet all of you, and it would be great to be connected. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Liam. And just adding my thanks to everyone who's taken the time to join the call. I know this slide starts with who's this for, but maybe we can answer it actually with who's it not for. And the answer to that one is, well, that's for you to decide. Because we haven't designed this course to try and target the marketing function or the HR function or the sustainability function. Actually, when we ask this question, who's it for, it's really something that we hope that you ask deeply of yourself. Because the way that we've designed this program, and building on what Liam was saying earlier, isn't to try and develop a functional response or to try and change the tone within your sustainability function. You could, as participants, choose to deploy the thinking that way. But really what we want to do is put this foundational layer of language and frameworks into your minds, into your hearts as well, so that you can then bring that to the organization. So what do I mean by this? Well, there's so much sustainability language and purpose language out there. You know, in some organizations, especially in North America, you know, the ESG acronym is no longer at home. So, you know, what's my recourse? And, you know, we've just come back from a trip to Singapore, and Carla's based there. And CSR is still an acronym that gets used all the time. And so for a global program, with no real functional focus. Actually, what we want to do is convene all of those questions, bring them together into a community of professionals who are wrestling with a similar type of problem, like the ones that I just mentioned, and propose that actually mutual value is language that not only can unite different functions and questions and teams, but is actually part of that bigger movement that Liam was talking about, this deeper paradigm shift from shareholder value to stakeholder value to mutual value. And so what we're doing with this program is beginning to invite that conversation of how can the mutual value language and the frameworks that we've developed with Mars and with Oxford over the years be brought into your context. So filtered through your experience, through your knowledge, through the projects that you have, and find a home and a place within your organization to experiment and to evolve. And so this is why community is so important, because we don't think that that kind of experimental and transformational work can happen just on your own. So we want to be that community for you. So if you're searching for supports, places to bounce ideas off, this program is definitely that. But also if you're looking for those concrete cases, maybe you don't have an iconic case in your program, and Patagonia has gotten a little boring for you to refer to again and again. Well, actually, we want to begin to share some more cases with you. Again, we don't think that there's a perfect case for this work, so there's a very contextual piece, and that's why we want to show you a range of cases. Some of the ones that we've worked on directly, but some of the other cases that are happening around the world that we think are really worth highlighting. And we'll do that in a way by bringing both professors as well as business practitioners into the fold, so that they're not just polished Harvard cases, but they're actually stories from the front lines. And what does this actually feel like to be using mutual value as a lens through which to create new strategy and to drive business model innovation? We can go to the next. Thanks, Sarah. And so how are we imparting this kind of the language and the frameworks? Well, obviously it's a virtual course, it's a global program, it's organized around 9 weeks. Those 9 weeks will have a focal point of a 2-hour live session, but there's much more to participate in than just those 2 plenary sessions. So there's at least, or at most, I should say, an hour of pre-work. So that might be a video or a podcast or an academic article to read that will prepare you for the plenary session. But then alongside that plenary session, which by the way is not going to be a lecture for 2 hours, they're dynamic. They have breakout groups and polls. They'll be case-based as well as theory-based. So they're a very varied set of content in there. But we also set you up, and you'll be hearing from Jane, who's one of our fantastic tutors, set up in a small group of 5. So if you might imagine that there is a big group of 50 that you're a part of in the plenary course, in the plenary format, a smaller group of about 12 to 10 in your breakout groups, and then your small tutor group of 5. And this is a really fundamental part of our program where you really get to debate the ideas, have discussion, think about application in a safe setting with someone like Jane, who's an experienced coach and business practitioner, to help facilitate your learning. And this is a really unique part of the program because it really turns sometimes what exec education can be, which is a bit one-directional of here's the stuff that you really should know, now go do it, into a conversation, into a place where you can build community and connections with people around the world who are like-minded, who are trying to achieve this kind of paradigm shift in their context, in their business. And lastly, it's hosted on a digital learning platform where you can reach out to previous alumni, where you can post your questions, where you can share content, and we'll continue to stimulate that digital learning platform even after the program completes. You can go to the next slide, Sarah. And so just a little bit of a taster for what the course content will look like. So the 9-week journey really is a mixture of leadership work, so inner work, if you want to call it that, because so much of this transformation work depends on what we like to call courage and conviction to act. I know my own personal journey was to think that actually this whole shift within kind of business towards more a mutual economy, something where, shareholder primacy wasn't the number one thing in everyone's minds, would happen when we could do all the technical stuff, when we could measure environmental performance and human performance and social performance alongside our financial. And the kind of moment would just happen where everyone would go, oh my gosh, there's a better way to do our business. What have we been doing for the last 50 years? And of course, we're in a moment where we're data rich. Right? Everyone is talking about the person that sits on the biggest data stack is going to be the winner of the day. And yet nothing has changed in the way that we really think and imagine the role of our businesses and societies. But still, shock horror, we've lost X percentage points on the stock exchange, and shock horror, prime costs are going up. And so now we need to ask the consumers to pay more. And so it's really been a realization for us at Mutual Value Labs and me personally that the inner work is as valuable as the technical work. And so our course really tries to blend these two things. The power of personal purpose in the second module is that precise exploration of where do your own values and the things that you hold dear fit into the way that you run your businesses and think about the type of projects that you run. Alongside something like, if you jump to module 6, managing holistic performance and measuring performance of people and planet. So those technical pieces come together, but they're blended in with that inner work. And the whole piece of kind of mutual value creation is focused on sort of 3 core moments. What we call a moment of decentering, which will happen between sort of modules 1 and 3. A moment of kind of opening yourself up to the system and gathering systemic insights, which happens between 4 and 6. And then managing that and embedding that in your organization through metrics and experiments, which then happens 7 to 9. So these kind of 3 moments are the ways to think about the content. And as I said earlier, we're constantly blending that with professorial input. So you'll have seen in the brochure someone like Professor Colin Mayer, Professor Natalie Snedden. These are all eminent professors at Oxford University, but we'll also be bringing, hopefully, professors from the Asia Pacific region as well, where we can't announce any names just yet, but we want to bring that blend. And we always have a wonderful set of inputs from practitioners themselves. Thanks. Sarah, we can go to the next slide. And so I've talked about how fundamental community is, how fundamental the relationality of the program is, and that's true after the program completes. And so what we're not here to do is give you a shot in the arm and wish you good luck. What we're here to do is form a relationship and a partnership over time. I think Martin is going to suggest those nice things to you, and you can push him on how true that is in a minute. But we're here to give you that language and frameworks, and then to continue the conversation. We want to be a partner in different ways, and obviously, some people want to be kind of keeping track at a distance, and that's fine. You'll be an alumni of the program. We will offer quarterly events, masterclasses, community events of different kinds. Increasingly, we're doing in-person meetups. So Carla and I hosted one in Singapore last week with our alumni based in Asia Pac. And we're committed to continuing to do that. If you want to go that bit closer and you really want to bring this thinking in a more of official way, beyond getting the certificate for completing the program, you can also go through a formal certification program where you kind of dig another 12 feet deeper on all of those modules and really get an understanding of how can I deploy this for myself. And for that, we have a whole certification process that if you're interested in, please just reach out to anyone in the team and we can share with you more about what that certification process looks like. And then what we're also not demanding of you is that you spend these 9 weeks totally focused on the program. We know that this program will exist alongside your day-to-day. And so we're happy to make the course content, the recordings, all of the materials available to you for another 12 months so that you don't feel like I've got 9 weeks to digest everything and then I'm going to get locked out. We know that this program is fitting alongside other competing demands with family life, with other job demands. So we're really happy to make that available for you. But more than that, we want you to stay plugged into the community. Thanks, Sarah. I think that's it. And we are moving to the panel discussion. So I'll hand over back to Liam.
Thanks, Alistair. That was wonderful. And yeah, we are super lucky to have Martin, Carla, and Jane with us today. We want this to be as relaxed as possible. And for the attendees, please use the Q&A function to ask any questions you that you wish to have. Brief introductions. And so, Martin, Business Development Project Manager at Vex Partner. It'd be fantastic. You are an alumni of our program and yeah, and a wonderful supporter. It'd be great to kind of a brief introduction, if you will.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Martin Essing, and I work in a small consulting firm in Norway. Um, I started out with a master's degree in economics, and then I started working with accounting and sustainability for a few years. But then I really wanted to be more involved in how businesses actually develop and how they actually create value. And after a few weeks, really, in Vexparted, I was introduced to Alistair and the economics of mutuality movement. And I feel that it's really sort of a good answer to many of my personal beliefs on how businesses should be run and how they create value. So, really excited to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. And when did you do the course? Was that last year, Martin?
Yeah, last year.
Oh, great. Um, and yeah, we're really excited to understand how you have brought some of the thinking into your own work in later discussion. Um, Jane, Jane Craig, it's great to have you here as well. Tutor, CEO of Other Kind, and formerly part of the leadership director at Mars as well. Jane, you've been involved with the program for a while. It'd be great to have you, in your own words, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Liam. And hi, everyone. Yeah, I mean, I'll, rather than going through it in detail, but talk a bit about my path to this work. So, yes, I had a 20-year career with Mars Incorporated across different functions, and primarily in the kind of the people and organizational development space. But my path to this work was that, you know, partway through my career, I noticed that I was becoming increasingly conflicted with my, you know, part of that was my own relative success and what I was seeing elsewhere, but also, you know, noticing I had more and more questions around the business impact uh, we were having and other businesses were having, and kind of questioning some of the ways we were going about operating our businesses. And that coincided with my discovery of the economics mutuality work within Mars. And at that time, I was just about to take up the position of running all of our executive leadership. So it was a great time for me to get really interested in a time when a business is wrestling with these big questions that you mentioned. What's going on for leadership, and what is it? What kind of gets in the way of business leaders really engaging with these ideas? And there's a big answer to that. But I got really curious about that, so I got involved in that work, and I looked at how do we support our leaders more effectively so they can engage with these ideas and with a different paradigm, the potential for a different way of doing business. And then in 2018, I left and I set up my own business. And since then, so that's probably the last 10 years, I've been partnering with the Mutuality team and working on this program. It continues to be a fascinating journey. We can talk a bit more around that journey and what that's been like over that period of time. And you know what this program is going to bring for people. But hopefully when you hear stories like mine, I would hope there'd be some resonance with people on the call.
Yeah,
That at different points we start to notice that what we're seeing and how we're doing things may not, you know, certainly is not delivering the results we want.
exactly. I think that everybody on the call would agree with that. And yeah, and again, thanks, Jane, for being a supporter for so long. And it's great to have an alumnus and somebody involved with the the course itself this year, we also have somebody here that mixes both of those. So Carla, you actually have done the course and is going to be one of the course directors this year. And thanks so much for taking the time.
No worries. Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's really nice to be here with you all. And yes, as everyone said, I'm a fairly recent graduate of the programme. So I did the programme last autumn, and that was a really great experience for me, which I can share a little bit more about later. But my background is kind of 25 years in change, transformation, leadership development work with various different clients. Probably I love how Jane was segueing and connecting the dots. I think my journey into really even knowing about economics of mutuality was probably in my last role working for a company called Bridge, of which Mars were one of our brilliant clients at the time. And so I've kind of been in and around the framework in a consulting space for a little while. And for me, purpose is so important, and I help my clients kind of wrestling with both personal purpose and organizational purpose. I've now been running my own practice called the Purpose Collective for coming up for 5 years next year. And that's been a really important journey just personally as well, in terms of how I live my own purpose in the work that I do myself and with clients. And I'm really looking forward to supporting this program this year as well.
Great, thanks so much. And Carla and Jane, you both do this work for other organizations, and I think Alistair talked about a paradigm shift. Jane, would you mind kind of talking slightly more about that, about where you see the future of business strategy and whether this move away from sole focus on shareholder value is something that is going to be sustained?
Well, that's a big question, Liam. I think Alistair would speak better to that. However, I mean, I'm joking aside. What I've noticed, and partly why this is so important, is that it's hard, unless we're completely in denial, it's hard for us to notice the externalities that we are part of creating business. I know there might be other contributions, but within business. And therefore, I think what this work gets us to consider is really some really big questions that on this program, I think we're willing to explore. And I wrote some of those down. I mean, for example, is it enough for a business to contribute to economic GDP and employ people? Is that the sole role of business? Or actually, do we have greater responsibilities than that? Do our current tools honestly measure our true impact, good and bad? Do we have a fair appraisal of how it is we're creating or destroying value? So I think those are some of the questions that have led to this work, which, as Alistair said, teaches us, it's like an evolution of our business toolkit that helps us understand that maybe the way we're doing things that was really fit for purpose, we thought in the 70s, and perhaps we're now starting to appreciate the unintended consequences far better. And have we got the courage to take another look at them and consider where they may have some flaws? So it's not about throwing it all out, but it is about saying, in what way are they no longer serving us? And how can we improve the way we're running our businesses? Whether that's how we measure, how we innovate, how we get insight, and how we appreciate that value creation is not only about financial value. And if we do that, not only does that mean we can do a better job of creating value, but we can also make better performance decisions, because we can actually potentially avoid destroying and damaging value. Our very own value creation models can get destroyed if we're not measuring the right things, we're not paying attention to the right things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's so much in that, in terms of what we have to think about from the tools we use in business, but then also our own capacity to reimagine how we use those tools. And therefore, coming into the program, the fact that there is the power, when you say paradigm shift, we use that word, so it falls off the lips so easily, But actually what we're talking about is significant generational change in terms of how we, we've been doing business a certain way for 50, 60 years, and we're trying to lead for something different without all the answers, but we're trying to lead for something different. And therefore that in itself can be quite overwhelming for people.
Yeah.
And so how do we get around that together and support people in considering these ideas and putting those ideas into practice?
Yeah, exactly. I think we talk about, you're right, talk about being overwhelmed. A shared articulation, a shared framework is something that's, I think, really beneficial from anybody doing the course, because yeah, this is a difficult thing to bring your business with you on this journey and bring those around you on this journey. And Martin, you work with SMEs and smaller businesses, and it's interesting. This is a kind of universal issue. If this isn't just for multi-billion-dollar businesses, is that something that you find? And how has that helped the course helped your conversations with the people that you work with?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because I think you actually have to break it into two groups. Because when you're a startup, an early startup, you kind of already focus on solving problems. And most of what you're doing is actually about solving an existing problem, and you're not you're already focusing on solving problems without creating new ones. So when you're starting out with a business, it's really about sort of falling in love with the problem and understanding the problem, but also the purpose in which you are trying to achieve. So getting sort of the right starting points. And that's where economics of mutuality fits really well with helping entrepreneurs. Because if you go through the process of finding a purpose that's applicable for your startup and doing that in such a way that it's actually a strategic purpose, something that you can work out from, it's a really good starting point to both understanding the ecosystem and your role in it from the beginning. And we have seen a lot of examples with the companies we have worked with from an early stage where they adopt this mentality, and it really helps them when they're communicating with other stakeholders in their ecosystem, whether that's investors or potential partnerships. When they talk about how they want to contribute to a purpose, it's much easier for the other stakeholders in the ecosystem to help them or to participate than if they just want to sell a product or a service. So that's sort of the most important part for a startup. And for an established SME, there might be quite a few years since they started out, and they might have just sort of got caught in just running your business without thinking about the long-term strategy. You use all your time just to get enough money in the bank to pay your employees and to serve your customers. So you completely lose track of your purpose and what you're actually trying to achieve, because you're just trying to keep your head above water. And for them, I think it's really maybe the most important part of the course is how a business actually measure their success. Is it truly about creating a profit, or is it the contribution to the purpose or to solving the problem you want to help to solve? And I think those are two quite different perspectives, but both of them are really closely tied to purpose. But the difference is that maybe the startup already know their purpose. They start from scratch, while the SMEs might have to go back a few steps and start over, because the ones leading or managing the firm might not be the ones who started it and might not have the connection to the purpose. So it's really, really good, helpful tools.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's great to hear you talk about tools, because I think one of the major differentiators of our course, incredibly biased, of course, is this, how we begin at this kind of blue sky strategic level, but then deep down get into the practicalities and the culture change and the tools, and the real world examples. Would you kind of concur with that, Martin?
Yeah, yeah. We've been quite actively using your tools, and especially the criterion you have for establishing a meaningful challenge and actually helping businesses create a purpose that's not something fluffy, but something that's actionable and something that's measurable, because that creates truly there's a huge difference between having a fluffy purpose and something that's actually actionable and something that other people can relate to. And I think that's a huge difference. So the criterions for a meaningful purpose are one of the main or at least it's a very good starting point. And also the ecosystem mapping and being able to just get a visual representation of the ecosystem you're a part of. And actually, one of the companies we helped with creating this ecosystem map, the founder of that company actually started to cry when they saw their purpose in the center with all of the stakeholders around it with their problems. And when we started moving towards designing interventions, it just got too much for them, because then they had a visual representation of, and they had a visual representation of what they wanted to achieve, truly powered by purpose and visualized. And yeah, it's just an example of how, even though that tool is not complex, it's not really a difficult thing to create, but just taking the time and doing it properly, it can have a huge effect on the company you're helping. But it's also a great tool for the company to communicate with other stakeholders in your ecosystem when you acknowledge that they have problems that they need to solve as well. So yeah, no, the tools are great.
Enormous. Thank you so much. And you talk about the word actionable, and I think another great part of the course is the plenary sessions and the breakout areas, but the tutor groups where there's a small number of participants that are together throughout the course, that bring to the course a real life problems and real life business issues that are worked together together as a kind of team. And Jane and Carla, these are things that you've obviously had huge experience with. Is that a real powerful part of the course, Jane? I think it is.
Yeah, well, we are biased, aren't we? I mean, maybe Carla can speak in a moment to her experience of the tutor groups. I'll say a little bit about them. So the experience of going through the program, my understanding of it is that you're going to receive an awful lot of information and work through with other participants, work through all of that that knowledge and information, and try and get your head around it. And the tutoring process is a space that allows you with your peers to really and genuinely wrestle initially with these ideas, but then also with the practical application of like, where do I start with these ideas and with these tools within my context? And how do I do that in an environment where it's okay for me to question it, it's okay for me to challenge it, it's okay for me to say, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and it's okay for me to surface it, like the sacred cows. One of the things I've noticed running the program over the last 8 years is that the tutor group, the nature of conversation that's happening in the tutor group has changed, it's evolved. So people now, 8 years on, are far more willing to surface things that 8 years ago they weren't really willing to talk about. So almost our receptivity, our willingness to kind of, there's more people that are seeing that there's a problem that we need to have a go at solving for business, and therefore we're more willing to challenge some of the assumptions around how business operates. And that's the tutor group process is a place where you can do that, and know that, you know, and that we can have different perspectives, and we leverage those in order to find that, you know, the best way to move forward for each participant as they have a go and they get started in their field, their function, their business, whether they're in an established business or a startup, or whether they're consultants. So, and feeling that you have other people alongside you as you do that, is super important.
It's real human-led learning and understanding of how you embed these kind of principles both into yourselves and into your business. Carla, you've been through the course recently. That kind of human connection is super important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you get to know the people in your tutor group, both kind of personally and professionally. And like Jane said, it is a really safe space to kind of wrestle with. I remember in our tutor group, I could not get my head around one of the tools and models, and I was being quite challenging to my tutor and being like, but in reality, it just doesn't work like that. So how am I going to lead for that? So you can have like really real conversations, and you can also just be really open and vulnerable about the fact that you might not know how to do it. And that not only will the tutor, but I think also the other people in your, you know, peer group will support you and kind of hold you accountable to the journey as you go along. And I feel like even more right now, having that smaller group to talk about what we're all seeing in the world and how hard it is to live and lead a bit more courageously, you don't feel so alone, because you realize, you know, you've got this safe group of people that are all wrestling and wanting to try to do things differently as well. So I would say were one of my favorite parts of the program for sure.
Great. And just getting to know you over the last month or so, Carla, it's great to see that you're friends with a number of the Singaporean connections. That's a really lovely thing to say.
Yeah, I have met in real life with my tutor group, because we were all kind of centering around Singapore, and we have like lots of shared people that we know in common, and it's been really nice. It's kind of a little bit what Alistair and I were trying to create last week, like a real like in-person version of a tutor group, so that we can keep each other sustained on the journey. So yeah.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely vital. And so again, for all the attendees, I was slightly overrun here, but we can continue for another few minutes. We have one question, but please keep them coming in, and you have all of my contact details after the call itself. But from Ingeborg, apologies if I've mispronounced that name there, about how we can together create a pool of companies that are ready for purpose, specifically looking at geopolitical trends. Wow. Again, enormous question. Part of what we do, the Economics Mutuality Alliance, is looking to convene ambitious businesses. Part of our alumni network, we have over 500 in our alumni network now that are of individuals who are looking to implement purpose and trying to bring this community together. I think that every business is impacted by geopolitical trends and will continue to be. And I wonder whether any in the panel have any thoughts about how kind of purpose and about how decentering your business might help insulate from the short-termism of geopolitical issues. Again, keeping the conversation really light here and really easy.
I mean, what we learned in the pandemic, Liam, was that from an organizational resilience perspective, those organizations that had not driven, from an efficiency driver, pushed themselves so hard that they were running so efficiently, but they still had the ability to flex, whether that's how much money they've got in the bank, or whether working out slightly, not maxing out on whether utilizing their manufacturing assets, for example. That there's something about resilience. There's a lot of research around trust in organizations, that if you have high trust with your employees, when you go through a big restructuring, for example, or a difficult time, your performance will not dip. However, if you don't have that, you will get a dip in performance. So I think there's quite a bit of research that suggests that when we think about value, whether that's relational value, or the capabilities or well-being of your people, that is sustaining. The one point I was just going to refer in terms of the question, which is more from a leadership aspect, which is that where this moment in time, you would think that with all the crises that are going on and the environmental challenges, that we'd be more ready than ever to engage with these ideas. That would be a reasonable assumption to go, I mean, look what's going on. Surely there's going to be increased appetite to engage with these ideas. I think the reality is that what we're noticing is that in some businesses, especially PLCs, is there is so much pressure at the moment to drive short-term results. It's so intense. There's so much anxiety around that if anything, the readiness for these ideas has declined slightly, and it's harder than ever. And that's hard to say out loud. I'd love to say it was different, but it's tough, and all the more reason to learn about ways to cut through that and to be supported to do it, because it's not a reason to not bother. In my book, we have to keep bothering, but we can't do it alone. And we need some help, and we need great ideas and tools and things to go out and experiments and things to go out and say, let's really have a go at this in small ways and see if we can move the needle over time.
That's a great answer. Thanks so much, Jane. Yeah, that was useful. And then I'm going to pass over to Alistair for our final word. But in terms of the panel, thanks so much, Martin, Carla, Jane, for your time today. And yeah, it's been great to hear from you.
Thanks, Liam. Yeah, thanks to the panelists. It's very personally rewarding to hear all your stories and your reflections from all the different points in the journey that you guys have partnered with us. And I hadn't heard that story, Martin, about the map you built in Silicon Valley. So I'm glad that the course has proved to be so useful in your own context. And I guess there's no better illustration than what you heard from the panel in terms of what we want to achieve from the course, which is people taking away ideas and frameworks, feeling inspired to experiment this future with this kind of group that you form within the program behind you, but also into your context. And that's the goal of the program. It's not to give you all the answers to all the questions that you have, because we don't know all those questions and we don't know all the answers. So actually what we want to do is empower you, to give you confidence, to give you some clarity around how you want to go about answering those, and to never feel like you're having to do that alone. And so if that is the situation you're in, if those are the things that you're looking for, then I have no hesitation, and I think the panelists will say as well, they have no hesitation in saying this program will be a really valuable use of your time and resources. Personally, I think, and for everyone on the team, we really look forward to hearing from you and seeing you on the program.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Alistair, and thank you, everybody. Thanks, Sarah. Bye-bye.